Captain.
Ahoy! Welcome to the first video on my YouTube channel. Today's topic is my personal tour tier list. Yes, I talk about Rogue Adventure. If you don't know what Rogue Adventure actually is, you won't have much fun with this video, but I recommend watching it anyways. I will try to rate the cards on an objective basis, but for me there's one single best deck in the game, and I will mention it a bit, but I will also give props to other cards useful for other tournament decks. Okay, let's start. So there are 130 cards available to play in tournament mode, and I will place them inside of this tier list. So as you can see, I decided to rank them with S+, S, A, X, B, C and D. S+ is for the best cards for every single tournament deck you want to play. S is for the best cards for the best deck. I mean, it's the best deck for me, but I guess it's kinda objectively the best. A is for useful additions. I mean, cards that really do something. They do something for nearly every deck. X is for cards that I won't play in the best deck, but they are pretty good in other decks. B is a very special rubric. It's about the useless exile cards. Why they have their own category, I will tell you later. C is for cards that at least do something. I mean, they aren't good, but they have a purpose in theory. D is for entirely useless cards. Don't ever play any of them in your tournament deck. But before we really start, a little disclaimer. I did my best to create cool pictures about all card groups I want to talk about, but the pictures are very small, the resolution sucks, and yeah. I know it doesn't look good, but I hope you have fun with it anyways. So let's start with the most needed in tournaments and in this game in general. You need damage and you need shield. So these cards have a little problem with it. They don't scale. I mean, some of them kinda scale, but a scale times 4 is not really impressive, let's be honest. So these cards go directly into the D tier. And here's the very opposite of them. Scaling cards. I mean, they don't just scale, in theory they scale endless. Lullab and Fairy Warrior scale for every Fairy/Fairy and Beastman card in the deck, and that makes them the best resource of damage and shield in the entire game. And yes, in theory Lullab is a bit better, but honestly there's no big difference between these two cards. Then we have Masked Swordman. A card that gets better every time you play it. The problem is, it obviously doesn't give you shield. So if you have a good reliable source of shield, this card is really good. Or if you just first thing kill the enemy anyways. I learned to love this card when tournament was still a bit interesting, let's say. Because back then gargoyles just healed for a huge amount and it scaled endlessly and you just couldn't kill them. Besides, if you played Masked Swordsman, so it has a special place in my heart. Then there's Lady of the Dark Souls, most famous for infinite loops with the old Jester before it got nerfed. Finally. It was really stupid. Then we have Guardians of the Demons and Black Knight. Both very good cards, they nearly do the same, but Guardian of the Demons steals all your ammo. So yeah, decide well which of them you want to play. And finally, our two little apprentice cards. Apprentice Guard is really good in combination with Guardian of the Demons and Black Knight. And Apprentice Knight sadly is just a way worse version of Lady of the Dark Souls. So Lullab and Warrior go to S tier, the others in X, besides Apprentice Knight. There's just no reason to play her. I mean, you can play her, but why would you if Lady of the Dark Souls is just better in every way? So let's talk about consistency. In tournament you play so many battles, and if you brick once, you die, and the run is over. So these cards will help you not to die. First of all, Elder Fairy, the best card in the entire game. She just gives you free mana, your mana will go endlessly high, and you can play a lot of her, as many as you find. She's never bad. Same as Moon Fairy. You can search every card in your entire deck. For free. I mean, who doesn't take a free search? And as Elder Fairy doesn't increase your waste counter once you played her and you want to play her, Moon Fairy will still increase the counter. The third card for consistency is V01 B01. This small robot gives you 1 mana whenever you draw it. Which means you start with 4 mana if you draw it, and if you don't play him, you can just play 1 more card. If you want to play him, you just play him, and he was for free. Really good card. And last of them, there's Old Jester. He's like a small moon fairy that can only search a random gold card, but this is enough to make him the 4th best card in the game. No surprise, they are all S+ tier, right? And of course there are 2 more consistency cards. She costs mana, which makes her way worse than Moon Fairy, but she doesn't exile, so you can search your cards over and over and over again. And he can just search cards you already played, so no exile and discard cards, and let's be honest, they are the best cards. So I will be fair and give them X tier, even though I'd never play them. But if you really want, I guess you can do. Now let's talk about power. Power means you can attack better and shield better, basically. So these cards allow you to exactly do that. The strength and resistance they give is permanent, and they're exiled, so they don't annoy your deck. Very good cards. Let's talk about them a bit more detailed. Wizard of Nature is obviously the best, as he just doubles it. Yeah, you need a basic, but the basic is very easy to get. The others give either strength and resistance or just one of them. While Fairy Priestess is a bit better than Sun Priestess, since he gives a fairy counter and Sun Priestess doesn't work for demons. And Neptune and Mermaid, well, they are sometimes hard to upgrade, they can't upgrade from the stash, and they just give 1 attribute, so they are obviously a bit worse. So Wizard of Nature is obviously the best, S tier for him. In my deck, it doesn't matter if I play Sun Priestess or Fairy Queen, as I don't play demons, so they're equally high. And Neptune and Mermaid can still be good cards, if you really want to play them. And these 2 cards are obviously way worse in fulfilling the same purpose. They don't exile, it's not permanent, be happy with your C tier. Another way to get strength and resistance are obviously overcharged cards. While they have one problem, Wizard is just the best. He gives 3 mana, the others give 2 or 1 or just 3 if you have 3 combat cards in your hand. The only other good card next to Wizard is Young Witch. Of course you can only play her in weakness decks, but she exiles and you can play multiple versions of her. So as for Wizard, as I really like him, Young Witch goes to X tier. I mean, she's not bad, you can consider her in some decks, and the rest goes to C tier. They do something, I guess. And here are our lifeguards. Earthseed is by far the best of them. He is easy to upgrade and you can still play him when you're silenced, very useful. Medusa seems equally good, but you can only upgrade her when you have poison in your deck. And of course, you can play her when you're silenced. Snow Queen is also a good deck. It's the best out against Sapphire Dragon, and at some point you need an out against Sapphire Dragon, and she's very reliable on it. I think it's a must play in every deck. Sigil Essence is basically a way worse version of Snow Queen. Yes, she gives resistance, but that does barely matter. Plus you can't always play her and she consumes all your mana. What an annoying card. So Earthseed and Snow Queen get the S+ tier. Medusa gets A, as dazing one enemy is still a good effect, and you can upgrade her sometimes when you have poison. Sigil Essence goes into C tier, she's just too annoying to play. Where some of you might disagree is my opinion on armor cards. I don't need armor in my deck. It's sometimes good to have, but you really don't need it. If you play your entire deck first or let's say at least second turn, what do you want with this armor? I mean, if you just can play enough shield every turn, you don't need the armor. But yeah, Robo-Witch and Iron Colossus are still useful cards. They give 9 or 3 armor, and it's really good. If you're really desperate for armor, you can just play Space Commander. He gives it every turn, you can get as many armor as you want. And if you really love armor, Ambassadors of Peace at least gives 1. And yes, it requires a bit of fantasy to think about a deck where Space Commander and even Ambassadors of Peace is a useful card. But I can imagine a deck where you're so desperate to keep your armor that they're actually useful. Now let's talk about a really underrated card. Seeker of the Light is just perfect. It purges every debuff, even silence, and it also heals. Cleaning every debuff every time you want is so good. Forgotten Priestess is obviously way worse. She's blocked by silence, she doesn't heal but give weakness. Okay, if you really want weakness you can play her, I guess. But I feel like I'm a really kind guy by giving her X tier. Seeker of the Light, obviously S+ tier. One of the best cards in the entire game for tournament. Let's fill up the sad empty B category with these cards. They basically do nothing. Nothing at all. But they exile. And when you draft a deck, you have to take some of them. And they are still better than every card in the C tier, just because they exile and don't fuck up your deck. Every card I play in my favorite tournament deck you can see in S+, S, A and B. But now let's talk about some other decks. At this point I should explicitly mention that even though these decks are my favorite decks, they can still be powerful. And of course they benefit a lot by the cards on the higher tiers. So if you want to play a fairy deck, just do it. Spam your deck with all these little fairy cards and use Night Fairy to shuffle them all back into your deck. As long as you keep distance from these fairies. Poison and burn is bad enough for tournament and these cards really don't do shit. And these cards have basically the same problem. They all give burn, but this little burn just doesn't do anything on higher infernos. The only exception is Lava Boulder, as he gives damage equal to burn, so if you manage to get a lot of burn, he can be useful, but the problem is he has concurrence, and this concurrence is just so much better than him, but I guess it's enough for C tier. If Lullab isn't enough Beastman Spirit for you, you can play these cards. The upper 4 are obviously way better than the ones on the bottom. But if you just go for strength, you can just play one Lullab and be happy. So yeah, these cards are kinda good. While on the other side, these strange hybrids aren't useful at all. Up to D you go! With these robot cards, you can bump up your race counter and use Flamethrower and Self-Destruction Bot to deal a lot of burn and damage. And here Lava Boulder's concurrence comes into play. BOP1 uses burn to create poison, and that basically means damage to all enemies. While these two robot cards absolutely belong into the D tier. Funny enough, while really a lot of good demon cards exist, for a pure demon deck only these 3 cards are really good. While also only these 3 demon cards are absolutely useless. And if Succubus would just keep exiling herself after the upgrade, she would get a B tier from me. Kinda ironic, right? The might positions in heaven seem to be quite clear. Fighter and Nephthil are entirely useless. Archer and Priestess are everything you need for a pure angel deck. And Guardian of Heavens and Time Shifter are good for gimmicky decks. So now only some very special cards are missing. Let's get to it. So let's get to these 4 candidates. Shadow Assassin is a very interesting card. It just halves the enemy's HP. So he can't kill an enemy, but he can do a lot of damage. But you can't just play him. I think he's a nice addition in some decks. It's not like he's bad at all, but yeah, he's more for some unique decks. So let's talk about Robo-Wasp. It's a bit like Masked Swordman in a way. Yeah, Masked Swordman doesn't apply poison, but poison is so useless in Tour. But Robo-Wasp does the same job as him. Besides, it's duplicating and not exiling, so you basically spam your deck with it. But honestly, if you play a Robo-Wasp deck, you don't want as many other cards in her. Artillery is really strong. Like, it's a really fucking strong card. But you have to build your entire deck around it to really make it worth. But you can do that, and then you have a really strong artillery deck. Ultron is a card I just didn't know where to place. I mean, you can build a deck around it if you buy all the max HP in shops and get to low HP and one-shot enemies on low infernos and do nothing on higher infernos with it. And it's 2 robots basically, and they come for 1 mana. I don't know, this card is so strange. Maybe I'm just too stupid to build a deck around it, so I will give it X tier. And if you build a good Ultron deck, please show me. So while I can imagine these 4 cards having an entire deck built around them and actually do something with it, these 4 cards are just useless. Special, but useless. I mean, Thorn Monk plays with Thorn. He deals damage equal to Thorn, increases Thorn, but that's just nothing. Thorn is so bad, and in 2 it's even worse. And Thorn Monk isn't a good card in any deck, not even in Druid. So yeah, don't play him. And Dark Lord does 3 things at once, but only the damage scales and the rest is useless, and only for damage you don't have to play Dark Lord. And these other 2 very poor cards play around weak and deal like no damage, and Acolyte even applies curse to you, which is terrible. So yeah, these cards are terrible in every way. Terribly special and also terribly weak. And if you ever feel like, man, I have way too much mana, I really need to get rid of it, just play these 2 cards. Dark Wizard deals damage with your mana, which sucks completely, don't play this card. And Mage Thief gives you coins for your mana, which can be really cool for decks that want to buy a lot of cards. So yeah, he's a good card, but he can also be very annoying. So play it with care. So while Mage Thief deserves A tier because yeah, he's really good. I mean, you can buy as many cards as you want. But with Dark Wizard you have to think about what else can I do with these 10 mana. I think you can do better than just spend it for this little damage. Talking about mana, these 2 little helpers come into play. They aren't so easy to play, but for some decks they are really good. For example, Artillery loves the extra exiled cards. God, what a tongue twister. Guardian of Sigil is obviously a bit better than Knight, but it's not like either effect is that impressive. Be cautious where you want to play them, because they can brick pretty fast, but keep in mind for some special decks. If you really hate Evil Elemental, you can play one of these 2 cards. Fairy Warrior and Lollip most of the time deal the same amount of shields and they deal damage. So stealing Evil Elemental's shield can save you a lot of time. But besides the comfort they provide against him, their usability is very minimal. And as it's just comfort against 1 boss, and not even countering him entirely, they can't get more than a C. Commander and Lieutenant Armstrong are really good cards. They can deal a lot of damage in big decks, and certainly some decks exist where these cards can be pretty powerful. These 2 summoners are like Day and Night. Druid of the High Elves provides immunity, resistance, strength and heal. Dark Lotus Witch provides Thorn, Poison and Burn. So our dear Druid is like a very mana consuming toolkit. And this witch just eats 5 mana before she's out of the deck, without doing anything useful. I'm not a big fan of Druid of the High Elves in tournament, but it's not like the card itself is bad. A tier seems fair, even though the other cards there are all better. This mana eating witch may rot indeed here. Magic Leaf gives you so many good effects at once, it's insane. A very special card. Little fun fact, it's the only card in the game that can trigger Master of Toxins completely by itself. As it's a very powerful toolbox, it deserves X tier. Prince of Blood is not so spectacular. It's basically just a worse shadow assassin that doesn't work on elites and bosses. To be honest, in Tour the most annoying enemies are the normals, but it's still so bad that it doesn't work on other enemies. So the question for me was, is it a B tier or is it a C tier? And as you can see, I gave it a C tier. Just because it costs HP and it's a demon, so it blocks Sun Priestess. So it's not just exile cards that doesn't do harm to you, it actually does. So I give it a C tier. And here's Cthulhu's Acolyte. I hope I pronounced that right. His shield effect is whatever, but his ability to delete unwanted permanent cards from your deck is very good. A card you should consider whenever you feel like having too many bad cards that brick your deck. Sphere of Duplication has so many ways to be used, I won't even start listing them. It's a bit annoying to play sometimes, but you can build cool decks around it for sure. So our last card goes into X tier. What did you just shout? That were only 129 cards? Oh, you are correct. I didn't mention the star of the show yet. I ask for thunderous applause. Here is Starfish! I will just put him as plus without commenting it, right? That was my tournament tier. What? You want me to explain? Okay, listen. Starfish is the definition of a card that can't brick. You only see it when your deck is shorter than 4 cards. And it can be useful in a lot of ways. If you drafted a really consistent deck, but you haven't found the damage card you wanted yet, Starfish carries you quite far. Besides that, it also can invoke Earthseed when you don't play any other shield cards. It can hit your enemies when you are blocked, and it's never bad to have. The real star of the game and a well-deserved S+ tier for him. So that's my rating of all 130 cards you can play in tournament mode. And now I want to have your opinion on my choices. I'm open for every discussion, write in the comments. Also tell me if you want to see more Rogue Adventure videos. I'm planning to make some more. And if you have ideas for some cool quotes, just write them in the comments as well. I will read them, and if I like them too, they will come into the next video. At this point I want to thank Zero for the intro, Sapphire for a lot of help, Dankeschön, and my quality analysts Niels and Mike. And of course a big thank you to Silmaril and Shark for creating this amazing game. If for some reason you watch this video and don't have the game already, you can find a download link in the description. And if you aren't on the official Rogue Adventure Discord yet, you can find an invitational link there too. May you always have a safe journey and a handspan of water under the keel. Ahoy!
Captain.